Hey folks, and welcome into TK Power Sports. Today we're looking at this, the new Honda Rubicon 700 4x4 automatic. Now I say new because what this actually is an updated version of the Honda Rincon, but for 2025 it's got a new name and a new look. So right now, let's go over everything about this new machine, and I actually think what's more important than the features here are the features that are missing. Let's jump into it. Woo! Let's start by going over the size of this unit, and these numbers virtually have not changed at all. So overall length here is 86.5 inches, width is 47.5 inches, while the height comes in at 47.5 inches as well. Ground clearance is listed at 9.6 inches, while the wheelbase is 50.6 inches. Finally, curb weight here is 721 pounds, while fuel capacity measures in at 16.8 liters. Let me interrupt this ride to tell you about today's sponsor, Quadlock. They make high quality mounts for your cell phone, cameras, or other devices, and they will go onto your machines. So here we have this Honda ATV. We mounted it up to the handlebars. I have my Google Pixel 6 with the Quadlock case. Put it on there, twist, and that thing is super secure. This has got to be the biggest selling feature when you're out there bouncing around, riding hard on the trails. Your phone is not going anywhere. And if you're like me, I like to have my map up and use the GPS while I'm out riding. Now, Quadlock also makes mounts for your cars and trucks. They'll go in the vents or up on the windshield, so you have a number of different choices. And when you go for the handlebar mount, they have different thicknesses too. So of course, I'm just out here on an ATV, but if you wanted it for your dirt bike, your bicycle, heck, even your snowmobile, this will work. Doesn't matter what you ride or what kind of device you have, Quadlock will have a mount for you. So if you're looking for something to keep your phone nice and secure, go check out Quadlock right now. Yes, sizing here hasn't changed, and neither has the engine. This is still a 675cc single-cylinder four-stroke mated to a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, yes, I already mentioned it does look new. There's totally new plastics and new styling for this ATV for 2025, and we get some updated features like the racks here, which are ready for all those Honda Pro Connect accessories, and the front bumper. Nice steel there, which does look pretty good. Now we can go over some of the details. For instance, those are 26-inch Maxxis tires, a fairly aggressive tread pattern too, and some pretty nice blacked out wheels. They don't look so cheap as some of the older Rincon wheels used to. Now a feature that I do like, and this has been taken from the smaller Rubicon, a little nose storage bin. Today I just got a rag in there. Not huge, but big enough for a wallet or a cell phone, whatever you want to keep out of the elements. And that is dry in there, and it has been raining today. So I do appreciate that. Now, as we roll back, let me mention the suspension travel numbers. In the front here, you're just getting right under 7 inches of travel, and in the rear exactly 8 inches of travel. So not great travel numbers overall. And maybe what's more frustrating, there's no adjustability on these shocks, not even preload. You can't get in there and dial them in any way. So yes, this thing is sort of take it as it comes. You don't have a choice. So I wish there was some suspension upgrades here, but they did not arrive. Another thing that did arrive though, which is kind of cool, there's almost a little hidden compartment over here. Open that up, and you can see, again, fairly deep. It is watertight, so it should keep things dry. All the paperwork is in there, so I do like the nod to a little bit more storage here. And then the last thing I gotta say before we go to the back is, you probably noticed there's a pod light up here. That's a little LED light, so nice to have the light on the handlebars so it turns with you. Looking at the actual kind of cockpit, all the controls, everything here is super familiar Honda. You have auto mode and manual mode, your shifter buttons on the left-hand side, 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and then sort of a callback to old school ATVs, because yes, this thing hasn't changed much. You get that old shifter here, that's drive, neutral, reverse. Yeah, that's there's nothing wrong with it. It works fine. It just reminds me of ATVs from when I was much younger. Now, getting back here to the back end, yes, updated rack. One thing that's frustrating to me, no hitch down here. I'm sure you can get one for this unit because they list the tow rating at 850 pounds. But yes, we do not have one here, which really should be included as standard. Now it's time to go riding, folks, but before I hit it, let me first say thanks to OFATV, the Ontario Federation of ATV Clubs, for providing us the pass to ride here today. We are on the Brentwood Tract, just outside of Angus, Ontario, and it really does have a nice mix of trails plus a lot of sand that we're gonna have fun in. So now let's feel the power on this 700. Time to nail it, let's go. Well, folks, the first thing that comes to mind is the power is not bad. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't feel like it wants to pull those front tires off the ground right away. You're not fighting with it. But it does feel slightly more robust than what you get down in that Honda Rubicon 520. So yes, the power feels like a step up from the smaller Rubicon, but not crazy powerful. And this seat of the pants, if I had to compare it, I would say the Grizzly hits a little harder from Yamaha, and that updated Kawasaki Brute Force 750, that thing definitely hits harder than this ATV does. So yeah, power's not bad. I think though, the first thing I noticed beyond just the power is the way it's delivered, and that is to say through a 3-speed automatic. Because there's only 3 gears here, you have to hold each gear for a long period of time. And then when it does shift, the shifts feel very abrupt, very clunky. Just to get it up into 3rd gear too, you're really already moving at a high rate of speed. So when you're picking through the trails like this, you're basically only in 1st and 2nd. 3rd is really more of a traveler gear. And yeah, that's just, it doesn't feel great compared to other modern ATVs, whether it's something with the CVT, with the belt, or again, I keep bringing it up, if you're on that Rubicon 520, you have a 5-speed dual clutch, which has plenty of gears, and the shifts are lightning quick. This is the opposite, not enough gears, and the shifts feel kind of clunky. Now the other thing that is immediately apparent, there's no power steering here. And you know what, I get it, it's subjective. Some people like power steering, some don't. These days, it's a totally standard feature on so many ATVs. I think the majority of people prefer to have power steering. I just think it's an issue with Honda that they don't offer it whatsoever on this unit. It feels like that would have been just a no-brainer upgrade to bring power steering here, but obviously Honda did not feel the same way. Now that being said, I don't mind the way the steering feels. I like heavy handlebars. I always liked machines without power steering, and when it first arrived on the scene, I remember thinking, oh, I'll never have an ATV with power steering. I hate it. I've changed my mind. I've come off that hard stance. But I will say, if you're an enthusiast and you're still looking for one of the most engaging rides from an ATV, don't get power steering, because you just feel everything through the handlebars. Coming through a corner when you're sort of weight transferring front to back, I just feel like you get such a great sense for what the machine underneath you is doing. So I think it's a miss by Honda not to have power steering, but I do like the manual steering that's offered here. So for flat ground riding and more relaxed trail riding, I'm totally good with how the suspension feels. It also feels like it would be stiff enough to carry a bit of weight and put a trailer on the back and still support you. The problem really presents itself with aggressive riding, especially in the whoops. There's a few whoop sections here, and it's immediately apparent that this thing is just under damped. It could use more damping, and it could use more travel. And once again, those are things that Honda obviously didn't agree with, or at the very least just didn't think were worth upgrading. But yes, if you get on this Rubicon 700, you find the limits of that suspension if you're riding it hard fairly quickly. So folks, to sum that up, you know what, I am having fun out here today on this Honda. Got enough power to really slide around the corners, which has been great. I guess my brain keeps going back to the fact though that this is a so-called all-new machine and it just feels like it's a decade, maybe even 2 decades old, and you just can't ignore that fact. Now you've heard some of my initial thoughts and seen me riding, and I don't want you to totally get the wrong impression. This isn't a bad machine as it sits. The power does feel decent. The tires have plenty of grip. I like kind of some of the storage features on here. I like that I can shift it myself. A lot of things here are good and sort of just classic old school Honda, but it feels like overall Honda is just resting on its reputation for reliability. The Rincon is known to be a reliable machine, and so this will likely be a reliable machine too, because they didn't really change anything. And those are the unfortunate parts about this ATV. I mean, a 3-speed, if you step down to the Rubicon 520, you're getting a 5-speed dual clutch. So the 3-speed, that shift from first to second is really abrupt, especially downshifting as well, second to first. You really have big throws on the transmission. It just makes it feel, yeah, dated and old. Some of the other issues here, the suspension needed to be updated, and Honda didn't do it. When I get up to speed, sort of on a flat ground trail, it's not bad, but here on this specific trail we're riding today, there's a lot of whoops, and in the whoops, right away you find the limits of that damping. And again, I wish I could go in there and sort of crank up the damping level a little bit, but you can't adjust them at all, and that's just another way that this ATV doesn't compete in today's market. It needs to have adjustable suspension. And then again, what's maybe more frustrating is if you step down to that Rubicon 520, it has those features. So Honda knows how to do these things, but when they approached redesigning the Rincon, it just feels like they did the least amount possible. New graphics, a new look, new plastics, a little LED light, and call it a day. So yes, as an ATV, if you want to go out there and hit the trail, you can still have fun with it. It's still going to work decent for you. And like I mentioned, it should be reliable. But if you're comparing this to the other Hondas in the lineup, and especially to the Yamaha Kodiak and Grizzly 700, it's just straight up non-competitive. Now with that thought in mind, here's where I think I really take issue with Honda. If they had looked at it honestly and said, you know what, we're not really competitive in suspension travel, we're not really competitive when it comes to the suspension design, we're not really competitive when it comes to the transmission and the powertrain, you know where we can be super competitive? The price. But that is not what Honda did. This machine, as it sits, is right around $14,500 here in Canada. And if you want an absolutely top spec Yamaha Grizzly 700, you're looking at just about $400 more. And if you get the base model Yamaha Grizzly, you're undercutting this thing by at least $1,000. And oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned yet, the Grizzly has power steering. You can't even get power steering here. That seems like it would have been the most obvious upgrade to bring to this package was power steering, and Honda didn't even do that. So sort of looking at where this thing sits in the marketplace, how much they're asking for it, what the competitors are, I just couldn't honestly recommend this new Rubicon 700, and it's still a little bit confusing as to why they renamed it at all, because it doesn't feel anything like that smaller and, in my opinion, better Rubicon 520. Now it's time for the top speed run here on the dirt, folks. Let's see what it'll do. Woo! Well, I saw 75 kilometers an hour, and I am here on a dirt trail, so maybe if I had a little more, it might have crept up. But yeah, I think right around 75 is going to be your top speed. Well, folks, we are coming to the end of this one. Now, disappointing is definitely the first word that comes to mind when looking at this new Rubicon 700. I don't hate the unit as it sits. It just feels like Honda should have and could have done so much more to make this thing competitive. And then at the end of the day, if the price point was okay, maybe closer to $10,000, $12,000, I could forgive it for many of those things. But if you're asking for the same money as your competitors and you're not offering anywhere near the same amount of features, yeah, once again, disappointing is the word. Well, folks, that is it for this one. Now, please drop in the comments, let me know what you think of this updated Rubicon 700. As always, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to TK Power Sports to see what we're testing next. See ya.